The Mafia boss had simply shut down after his wife passed away. His son ceased speaking altogether. Then a waitress, in a moment of accidental clumsiness, made a mess, and his son smiled for the first time in 729 days. That single moment shifted the trajectory of everything. He kept returning to the diner, not for the coffee, but for the woman who had somehow brought his son back to life. The rain hammered against the windshield with the force of bullets, but Rafael Moretti didn't even flinch. He had stopped reacting to sudden, sharp sounds 2 years prior. The night a car bomb intended for him had instead torn his wife apart. Now, essentially nothing moved him. Not the screams of his enemies. Not the desperate pleas of traitors. Not even the oppressive silence of his own son, sitting mutely in the back seat. "Boss, you sure about this place?" Marco, his driver, eyed the flickering neon sign of Rosie's Diner with obvious distaste. "I can have the chef prepare something at the penthouse in like 20 minutes. Luca's therapist said a disruption in routine might actually help." Raphael's voice was devoid of emotion, flat and mechanical. He didn't believe it for a second. 17 therapists in 2 years, and his son hadn't uttered a single word since the funeral. The boy was 6 years old and existed in a world of complete silence. Not because he couldn't speak, but because he had consciously chosen not to. The doctors called it selective mutism, triggered by profound trauma. Raphael called it his greatest, most devastating failure. He stepped out into the downpour, not even bothering with an umbrella. The cold water felt like nothing against his skin. Everything felt like nothing anymore. He opened the back door of the car and gently lifted Luca into his arms. The boy was terribly light, far too light. He barely ate anything anymore. "Just one meal," Raphael whispered against his son's dark hair. "Try for me, okay?" Luca's eyes, those beautiful brown eyes that once sparkled with mischievous energy, stared blankly past him at nothing. The diner was almost completely empty. Cracked red leather booths lined the walls, and the distinct smell of burnt coffee mixed with grease hung heavy in the air. An old jukebox in the corner played a tune from the 50s, barely audible above the relentless drumming of the rain. Raphael chose a booth in the back corner, always facing the door, always with a clear exit strategy in mind. Old habits, survival instincts. They were the only things that had kept him alive in his world. "I'll be right with you," a voice called out from behind the counter. Raphael didn't look up. He was busy trying to coax Luca into sitting on the booth seat instead of clinging to his lap. The boy clung to him like a baby, something that would have deeply embarrassed most 6-year-olds. But Luca wasn't like other children anymore. "Hey there. Sorry for the wait. We're short-staffed tonight. And, oh my goodness, you're both soaked." Raphael finally looked up, fully prepared to dismiss whoever it was with a cold, withering stare that usually sent people scurrying away in fear. Instead, he found himself looking at a young woman with genuinely kind eyes and her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She couldn't have been more than 25, wearing a coffee-stained uniform that had definitely seen better days. But there was something in her smile, something authentically genuine, that he hadn't witnessed in years. "Let me grab you some towels first. Can't have you catching pneumonia, especially this little guy." She leaned down slightly, speaking directly to Luca with a warmth that made Raphael's chest tighten unexpectedly. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Luca buried his face deeper into Raphael's chest. "He doesn't." Raphael started. "That's okay. Amia. I'm a little shy sometimes, too." She winked playfully at Luca before rushing off toward the kitchen. "Be right back." Raphael watched her go, genuinely confused by the strange flutter of something he couldn't quite name. Irritation, maybe? Or perhaps a flicker of curiosity at someone who didn't immediately sense the inherent danger radiating from him. Most people, even civilians, felt it instinctively, the predator in their midst. Mia returned quickly with 2 towels and that same bright, disarming smile. As she leaned over to hand one to Raphael, her elbow accidentally caught the edge of her serving tray, precariously perched on the next booth. A coffee cup tumbled off in slow motion. No. Mia lunged for it, but gravity inevitably won. The cup shattered on the floor with a crash, sending cold coffee splashing everywhere. including across the bottom of Raphael's expensive Italian shoes and dangerously close to Luca's sneakers. "Oh God! I'm so sorry. I'm such a klutz. She froze mid-apology. Raphael froze too, because Luca, his silent, traumatized son, who hadn't made a voluntary sound in 729 days, let out a small, breathy giggle. It was soft, barely audible over the pounding rain and the old jukebox. But Raphael heard it. He felt it like a goddamn earthquake in his chest. Luca was actually smiling. Not a big, beaming smile, just a tiny upturn of his lips as he watched Mia frantically trying to clean up the mess, muttering to herself about being a disaster on legs. "I'm so sorry," Mia continued, completely unaware that she had just performed a miracle. "Your shoes, they look expensive. I can pay for the cleaning. Keep the smile," Raphael said quietly, his voice rough with an emotion he couldn't contain. "What?" Mia looked up from where she knelt on the floor. "My son," he smiled. "Because of you." Raphael's hand trembled slightly as he touched Luca's cheek. The boy was still watching Mia with something like interest, the first genuine interest he'd shown in anything since his mother died. Mia's eyes widened as understanding dawned. She looked at Luca, then back at Raphael, and something subtle shifted in her expression. Not pity. Raphael absolutely hated pity. Something more like recognition, like she understood loss too. "Well then," she said softly, standing up with the broken cup pieces carefully balanced in her hands. "I guess I need to be clumsy more often." Another tiny sound from Luca, almost like a laugh. Raphael couldn't breathe. His right-hand man, Tommy, who had been sitting at the counter pretending to read a newspaper while actually providing security, was staring at them with his mouth slightly open. "What would you both like to eat?" Mia asked, pulling out her order pad with hands that shook slightly. Though whether from nerves or cold, Raphael couldn't tell. "Whatever's good. Whatever kids like." Raphael couldn't take his eyes off his son's face. Luca was still watching Mia, still wearing that faint ghost of a smile. "1 cheeseburger and fries for the little man." Mia tapped her pen against her lips thoughtfully, and Luca's eyes followed the movement with curiosity. "And I'm guessing you're a steak person? We have a pretty decent ribeye." "Fine. Whatever." Raphael didn't care about the food. He only cared that his son was engaged, present, almost alive again. As Mia walked away to place their order, Tommy appeared at the booth, his expression stunned. "Boss, did he just—" "Yes," Raphael's voice was tight. "He did. In 2 years." "I know, Tommy. I know." Raphael watched Mia through the window to the kitchen, laughing at something the cook said, her smile easy and unforced. She moved like someone who had known hardship, but refused to let it dim her light. She refilled coffee for an elderly man at the counter, squeezed the shoulder of a tired-looking trucker, and somehow made this rundown diner feel almost like home. And his son, his broken, silent son, couldn't stop watching her. When she brought their food 15 minutes later, Luca actually reached for a French fry without prompting. Raphael's hand tightened around his knife. "He has good taste," Mia said. "Our fries are legendary." Well, legendary in a 3-block radius, anyway. Luca actually ate. Not much, but more than he had in days. Raphael left a $500 tip on a $40 meal. As they walked out into the rain, Luca actually walking beside him instead of demanding to be carried, Tommy leaned close. "Want me to run a background check on the waitress?" Raphael paused at the door, looking back. Mia was wiping down their booth, humming along to the jukebox. She caught his eye and waved, that genuine smile lighting up her face. Something in his chest, something he thought had died with his wife, stirred to life once more. "Yes," Raphael said quietly. "Find out everything." But even as he said it, he knew the truth. He wasn't just curious. For the first time in 729 days, Raphael Moretti felt something other than rage and grief. He felt hope, and that terrified him more than any enemy ever could. Raphael didn't sleep that night. He stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, watching the city lights blur through the expensive glass, replaying the sound of Luca's giggle in his mind like a recording he couldn't pause. Behind him, spread across his mahogany desk, was everything his men had gathered on Mia Alvarez in 6 hours. Age: 24. Born in Queens, works double shifts at Rosie's Diner, breakfast, and dinner service. Associate's degree in early childhood education from community college, abandoned after the 2nd year. No criminal record, not even parking tickets, no debt except student loans. Lives alone in a studio apartment in Bed-Stuy. Grocery shops at the discount store. Takes the subway. Volunteers at St. Mary's Soup Kitchen on Sundays. And one more thing, handwritten in Tommy's careful script. Takes care of elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chun, 3 times a week. Buys her groceries. No family compensation. Raphael picked up her photo, a grainy shot from her community college ID. She looked younger, more hopeful, before whatever had happened that made her abandon her degree. She's clean, boss, Tommy said from the leather chair across the room. Almost too clean. No social media presence. Nothing in the gaps. She goes to work, goes home, helps her neighbor. That's it. Everyone has secrets, Raphael muttered. Maybe some people are just good. Raphael's laugh was bitter. No one's just good. Not in this world. But even as he said it, he remembered the way Mia had spoken to Luca. Not with pity or fear. She hadn't known who Raphael was, hadn't sensed the violence that clung to him like cologne. She'd just seen a wet, sad little boy, and wanted to help. His phone buzzed. A text from Luca's night nurse. He asked for breakfast. Actually asked, used words. Raphael's hand tightened around the phone until the screen cracked slightly. Words. Luca had used words. He grabbed his coat. The diner looked different in the daylight, less menacing, more tired. The neon sign was off, revealing how faded and broken it really was. Through the window, Raphael could see Mia moving between tables with that same effortless energy. A coffee pot in one hand and plates balanced on her other arm. He walked in and the bell above the door chimed. Mia turned, and for a second, just a second, something like recognition crossed her face. Then she smiled, and it was like sunshine breaking through clouds. Well, look who's back. And it's not even raining today. She gestured to an empty booth. Same spot as yesterday? Raphael nodded, suddenly unsure of himself. He'd faced down rival families, negotiated with corrupt politicians, ordered executions without blinking. But this young woman, with her coffee-stained apron, made him feel like a teenager asking someone to prom. Where's your little guy? Mia asked as she poured him coffee without asking if he wanted it. School. He went to school today. First time in 3 weeks. Mia's face lit up. That's wonderful. Was he okay? He ate breakfast. He spoke to his nurse. Raphael paused, the words difficult. Because of you. Because of what happened last night. Mia set down the coffee pot, her expression softening. I didn't do anything special. You made him smile. That's everything. She sat down across from him. Bold, unprofessional, perfect. What happened to him? If you don't mind me asking. Raphael should have minded. Should have shut down the conversation with a cold silence that kept everyone at arm's length. Instead, he found himself talking. His mother died 2 years ago. He was in the back seat, saw everything. The lie came easily. The truth about the bombing would raise too many questions. He stopped talking that night. Just stopped. And you? What about me? Mia's eyes, brown and deep, and seeing far too much, held his. Did you stop too? The question hit harder than any bullet. Raphael stared at her. This waitress, who should have been afraid of him, should have sensed the danger and stayed away. But she just sat there, waiting like she had all the time in the world. I came to thank you, he said instead of answering, and to give you this. He slid an envelope across the table. Inside was $5,000. Mia opened it, gasped, and immediately tried to hand it back. I can't accept this. I didn't do anything to. My son smiled. That's worth more than money. But I can't. This is too much. I just brew coffee and keep it coming. Buy something for yourself. Take a day off. Whatever you want. Mia's jaw set in a stubborn line. She counted out $200 and put it in her apron pocket. The rest? She pushed it back across the table. Your son earned that smile. Not me, she said firmly. I'll accept a tip for good service. Not charity. Raphael blinked. No one refused his money. No one refused him anything. You're turning down $5,000? I'm turning down $4,800. The $200 is generous enough. Thank you. She stood up, smoothing her apron. Now, are you going to order? Or did you just come here to throw money at the poor waitress? Despite himself, despite everything, Raphael smiled. Actually smiled. Dangerous words in a diner, Mr. Raphael. Just Raphael. Okay, just Raphael. One omelet coming up. As she walked away, Tommy, who had been sitting at the counter again, caught Raphael's eye and mouthed, "What are you doing?" Raphael didn't know. For the first time in years, he was doing something without a plan, without an angle, without calculating every single risk. He picked up his phone and canceled his afternoon meeting with the Colombians. A deal worth $2 million. He wanted to stay at the diner a little longer, just to see what surprise Mia would bring him. 3 weeks passed like a dream Raphael didn't want to wake from. He visited the diner 12 times, sometimes with Luca, sometimes alone. Each visit, his son spoke a little more, smiled a little wider, and each visit, Raphael found himself staying longer, watching Mia move through her world with an ease he'd forgotten existed. "You're going soft, boss," Tommy warned him one morning. "The families are starting to notice you've been distracted. I'm handling business. You canceled the Petrov meeting twice. Petrov can wait." Raphael adjusted his cufflinks, trying not to think about the fact that he'd chosen a blue shirt because Mia once said blue suited him. Tommy sighed. "Just be careful. You're making yourself predictable, and predictable gets people killed." Raphael knew he was right. But when Mia called that Saturday morning, her number saved in his phone after their 5th visit, he answered before the second ring. "Raphael, it's Mia. I hope I'm not bothering you, but I have the day off, and I was thinking." She paused, nervous. "Luca mentioned he likes parks, but doesn't go much. There's a nice one near the diner. If you're not busy, maybe we could." "Yes." The word came out too fast, too eager. "Really? Okay. Meet me at Prospect Park near the boathouse in an hour?" Raphael looked at his calendar. A meeting with his accountant. A weapons inspection. A sit-down with the union reps he'd been bribing for 3 years. "We'll be there." Luca held Raphael's hand as they walked through the park, but his eyes kept scanning the crowds, looking for her. "Papa, is Mia really coming?" His voice was still soft, hesitant, like he was testing whether words were safe again. "She said she would." "What if she forgets?" Raphael squeezed his son's hand. "She won't forget, and she didn't." Mia appeared near the boathouse wearing jeans and a yellow sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She waved, and Luca dropped Raphael's hand to run toward her. Actually run. Something Raphael hadn't witnessed in 2 years. She caught him in a hug, laughing. "There's my favorite guy. You ready for the best Saturday ever?" "What are we doing?" Luca asked, his eyes bright. Mia pulled out a bag of sidewalk chalk. "Art. The whole park is our canvas." For the next 2 hours, Raphael sat on a bench and watched his son live. Really live. Mia drew elaborate chalk dragons and castles, and Luca filled them with colors, laughing when she accidentally drew a dragon with 6 legs instead of 4. "He's a special dragon," Mia declared. "He needed the extra legs for all his adventures." Other children joined them. A little girl in a red dress. 2 brothers arguing over the blue chalk. Mia welcomed them all, turning the sidewalk into a neighborhood art project, while Raphael watched from behind his sunglasses. "You're crying," Tommy said quietly. He'd been standing 20 feet away, pretending to read a newspaper. Raphael didn't bother denying it. Tears slid down his cheeks as he watched Luca chase pigeons with the other children, his laughter carrying across the park like music Raphael had forgotten existed. "My son is happy," Raphael whispered. "Because of her?" "Yes, that's dangerous, boss. Making one person responsible for your son's happiness." Raphael knew that, knew it in his bones. But when Luca ran back to him, grabbed his hand, and pulled him toward the chalk drawings, Raphael let himself be pulled. "Papa, look. Mia drew you." Luca pointed at a stick figure with black hair and a frown. Next to it was another stick figure with a smile and a dress, clearly Mia. And between them, holding both their hands, was a small figure with the biggest smile of all. "That's us," Luca said proudly. "We're a family picture." Raphael's breath caught. He looked at Mia, and she was biting her lip, suddenly uncertain. "I didn't mean to overstep. He wanted to draw it and I just helped." "It's perfect," Raphael said hoarsely. The afternoon stretched into evening. They got ice cream from a vendor. Luca got chocolate all over his face and didn't care. They fed ducks at the pond. Mia taught Luca how to skip stones, though most of his just plopped into the water with disappointing splashes. As the sun started setting, painting the sky orange and pink, Luca fell asleep against Raphael's chest, exhausted and happy. "Thank you," Raphael said to Mia as they walked slowly toward the park exit, "for giving me my son back. You're giving me too much credit. I'm giving you exactly enough." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Mia, I need you to understand something. I'm not a good man. My world is complicated and dark." "I know you're in the Mafia," Mia said quietly. Raphael stopped walking. "What? I'm not stupid, Raphael. The bodyguards, the expensive suits, the way people look at you when you walk into rooms." She met his eyes steadily. "I've known since the second visit. And you still. I judge people by their actions, not their jobs. You're a good father. You tip well. You say please and thank you. That's what I know." She touched Luca's sleeping head gently. "And this little guy thinks you hung the moon." Raphael stared at her. This impossible woman who saw his darkness and chose light anyway. "You should be afraid of me, probably," Mia agreed. "But I'm not." And for the first time since his wife died, Raphael wanted to kiss someone. Wanted it so badly his hand shook. But Luca was between them, and the moment wasn't right. And maybe, just maybe, some things were worth waiting for. The diner had become Raphael's second office. He held meetings in the corner booth, reviewed reports over Mia's terrible coffee, and made decisions worth millions while she refilled his cup and pretended not to listen. His men adapted. The families whispered, and Raphael stopped caring about anything except the 2 hours each evening when Luca would do his homework at the table while Mia brought him hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. But peace never lasted in his world. "Boss, we have a problem," Tommy said one night, sliding a folder across the table after Mia had gone to help another customer. Raphael opened it and felt his blood turn cold. Surveillance photos, grainy, taken from a distance, but clear enough. Him entering the diner. Luca laughing with Mia. Mia leaving her apartment. The elderly neighbor she helped. Someone was watching them. When were these taken? Last week. Found them during a raid on a warehouse in Red Hook. It belonged to the Serranos. Raphael's jaw clenched. The Serranos. Don Serrano's family had been decimated in the same bombing that killed his wife. Collateral damage in a war Raphael hadn't even started. Word on the street said the old man had gone into hiding, broken and defeated. Apparently he had been rebuilding. How much does he know about the girl? Everything. About how much she means to you. Tommy's expression was grim. Enough to make her a target. Raphael's hands curled into fists. Double her security. I want eyes on her apartment, the diner, every place she goes. Already done. But boss, there's something else. Tommy pulled out another document. We dug deeper into her background, like you asked. And her brother, Miguel Alvarez, disappeared 4 years ago. Last known location was Serrano territory in Queens. The implications hit Raphael like a physical blow. You think she's connected to them? I think it's one hell of a coincidence. Brother goes missing in Serrano territory. For years later, she's serving coffee to the man Serrano blames for destroying his family. Tommy's voice was careful, neutral. Could be she's a plant. A long game. No. Raphael's voice was hard. I've seen her with Luca. That's not acting. People can fake anything for the right price or the right threat. Raphael looked across the diner, where Mia was laughing with the cook, her smile genuine and bright. He had built his empire on reading people, on seeing through lies and manipulation. Everything in him said she was real. But doubt was a poison, and Tommy had just injected it straight into his veins. 2 days later, Raphael sat in his car outside Mia's apartment building at 2 o'clock in the morning. He had been following her discreetly from a distance, watching for any sign that she was playing him. She had worked her shift, gone home, checked on Mrs. Chen, made herself dinner, read a book by the window. Nothing suspicious, nothing at all. But then, at 2:47 a.m., a car pulled up, a black sedan, tinted windows. A man got out, tall, wearing a hood. He looked around carefully before entering Mia's building. Raphael's hand moved to his gun. 10 minutes later, the man emerged alone. He got back in the car and drove away. Raphael's phone was in his hand before he had even made a conscious decision. "Tommy, I need a trace on a license plate." Now, within an hour, he had his answer. The car was registered to a shell company, the same shell company that owned 3 buildings in the old Serrano territory. Raphael felt something break inside his chest. The next evening, he came to the diner as usual. Luca was with his tutor, so Raphael came alone. He sat in his booth, and when Mia came over with her bright smile, he couldn't return it. "You okay?" she asked, concerned. "You look tired. We need to talk. Privately." Her smile faltered. "Raphael, you're scaring me. My apartment tonight at 10 o'clock. I'll send a car." "What's this about? Your brother?" He watched her face carefully. "Miguel." All the color drained from Mia's face. Her hand started shaking so badly she had to set down the coffee pot. "How do you know about Miguel?" "I know everything, Mia, including the man who visited your apartment 2 nights ago at 3 o'clock in the morning." Raphael's voice was cold now, the voice he used for interrogations. "So, you're going to tell me the truth, all of it, or we're done here." Tears filled her eyes. "Raphael, please, don't be late." He stood up and walked out, leaving money on the table behind him. He heard Mia's quiet sobs, but he didn't turn around. He couldn't because if she was playing him, if she'd been using his son to get close to him, Raphael would have to do what he always did with traitors. And he didn't know if he could survive killing someone Luca loved. Back in his penthouse, Raphael poured himself a drink and stared at the photos spread across his desk. Asterisk Luca's happiness. Asterisk the man entering her building in the middle of the night. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Asterisk you took everything from me. Now I'll take everything from you. Starting with her. Asterisk no signature needed. Serrano was declaring war. And Mia was caught in the middle. Willing participant or innocent victim. Raphael didn't know anymore. But he was going to find out, even if the answer destroyed them all. Mia arrived at 9:47 p.m. 13 minutes early. Raphael watched her on the security monitors as she stepped out of the car he'd sent, looking small and terrified in front of his building. She wore the same jeans from the park, a green jacket he'd never seen before. Her hands twisted together nervously as the doorman escorted her inside. He should have felt powerful, in control. This was his territory, his fortress, and she was walking into it alone. Instead, he felt sick. Tommy stood by the window, arms crossed. "You want me to stay?" "No. Wait outside. If I need you, I'll call." "Boss, if she's working for Serrano, then I'll handle it." Tommy left reluctantly, passing Mia in the doorway. She flinched when she saw him, and Raphael hated himself for putting that fear in her eyes. "Sit," Raphael said, gesturing to the leather couch. His voice came out harder than intended. Mia sat on the edge, hands clasped in her lap like a schoolgirl called to the principal's office. She'd been crying. Her eyes were red and swollen. "Tell me about your brother," Raphael demanded, standing over her. Intimidation tactic, old habit. "Miguel." Her voice cracked. "He was my hero. He raised me after our parents died. He worked 3 jobs to put me through school, and then he disappeared." "In Serrano territory." Mia's head snapped up. "How do you know about Serrano?" "I know everything. Now answer the question. What was your brother doing in Serrano territory?" She stood up suddenly, anger flashing through the tears. "He was trying to survive. We lived there, Raphael. Not everyone in that neighborhood was a criminal. Some of us were just poor. But Serrano's men recruited him. They tried to. Mia's hands curled into fists. Miguel refused. He said he wouldn't become what her father was, a low-level enforcer who died in prison. So she choked on the words, they made an example of him. Raphael's certainty wavered. How do you know? Because they dumped his body in our apartment hallway with a note pinned to his chest. This is what happens to those who say no. The words came out flat, dead. I was 20 years old. I found him when I came home from my shift at a grocery store. Raphael felt his carefully constructed suspicion beginning to crumble. I moved away 3 days after the funeral, Mia continued, tears streaming down her face now. Changed my phone number, dropped out of school, ran as far as I could. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want justice. I just wanted to forget. Who is the man who visited your apartment 2 nights ago? Mia blinked, confused. What man? Don't play games with me. Raphael's voice rose. Black sedan. 2:47 a.m. Stayed 10 minutes. One of Serrano's shell companies owns the car. Understanding dawned on Mia's face, followed by something that looked like relief. That was David Chun, Mrs. Chen's grandson. He works night shifts at the hospital and stops by to check on his grandmother when he can. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands. Here, his number. Call him. Call her. Ask them. Raphael stared at the phone she thrust toward him. The pieces weren't fitting the way he needed them to. The car. He's a nurse, Raphael. He probably has to register his vehicle through the hospital system. I don't know about shell companies or territory or any of that. Her voice broke completely. I just know he's a good guy who loves his grandmother. Raphael felt the ground shifting beneath him. He'd been so sure. The coincidences, the timing, the connection to Serrano, it all made sense. Except it didn't. Serrano sent me a threat, he said quietly. About you. Said he'd take everything from me, starting with you. Mia's face went white. What? He's been watching you. Watching us. He thinks you matter to me. The question was barely a whisper. Raphael looked at her. Really looked at her. This woman who'd brought his son back to life. Who returned $5,000 because she had principles. Who stood in his penthouse and yelled at him even though she was terrified. Yes, he admitted. You do. Then we have a problem. Mia wrapped her arms around herself. Because I think I'm falling in love with you, and I have no idea what to do about it. The confession hit Raphael like a bullet. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The city glittered behind them through the floor-to-ceiling windows, beautiful and dangerous, just like everything in his life. I'm sorry, Raphael said finally, the words foreign in his mouth. For accusing you, for doubting you. You're scared. Mia stepped closer. I get it. Your wife died. Your son stopped speaking. You've been surviving instead of living. And then I showed up and ruined your safe, miserable existence. Despite everything, Raphael almost smiled. Is that what you did? Apparently. She reached out tentatively and touched his hand. Raphael, I don't know anything about your world. I don't want to know. But I know Luca and I know you. The you that tips too much and stays at the diner too long and looks at his son like he's the only thing that matters. He is the only thing that matters. Then protect him. Protect yourself. If Serrano is really coming after you, maybe I should disappear. Go somewhere safe until... No. Raphael's hand closed around hers, holding tight. Running didn't save you last time. It won't save you now. Then what do we do? Raphael pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. She smelled like coffee and vanilla and safety, things he didn't deserve. We fight, he whispered. Together. The next morning, Luca ran into the kitchen to find Mia making pancakes while his father watched with soft eyes. The boy launched himself at her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Mia, you're here for breakfast. She hugged him back, meeting Raphael's gaze over his head. Yeah, sweetheart. I'm here. And for the first time in years, Raphael let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, happy endings were possible even for monsters like him. Life developed a rhythm after that night. Mia still worked at the diner, but Raphael's men became permanent fixtures. Tommy at the counter, Marco by the door, others rotating in shifts. She pretended not to notice. The regular customers assumed they were cops. Raphael moved his office hours to match her schedule. Luca did homework in the corner booth every afternoon. For 2 weeks, it almost felt normal. Almost. "Boss, Serrano's been quiet," Tommy warned on a Tuesday afternoon. "Too quiet. Keep the perimeter tight. He'll make his move eventually." But Raphael had underestimated how patient a man with nothing left to lose could be. It happened on a Thursday night during the dinner rush. Mia was carrying a tray of plates when the first gunshot shattered the front window. The glass exploded inward like deadly rain, and chaos erupted instantly. Customers screamed. Tables overturned. Someone's coffee cup shattered against the tile floor, the sound eerily similar to that first night when Luca had smiled. "Luca!" Mia's scream cut through the noise. The boy was frozen in their booth, eyes wide with terror that Raphael recognized. The same look from the night his mother died. Mia dropped her tray and ran, not toward the exit like everyone else, but toward the child. More gunshots. The jukebox exploded, dying mid-song. The cook dove behind the counter. Tommy returned fire from his position, but he was outnumbered. 3 men in ski masks were advancing through the shattered doorway. "Everyone down," Marco shouted, but his voice ended in a grunt as a bullet caught him in the leg. Mia reached Luca and grabbed him, pulling him down behind the booth. "It's okay, baby. I've got you. I've got you." But the booth wouldn't protect them. Raphael knew that from where he was pinned behind an overturned table, his own gun drawn. The shooters were using it for target practice, with splinters flew as bullets tore through the cheap material. One of the masked men advanced, reloading. He was heading straight for Mia and Luca. "No!" Raphael broke from cover, firing twice. The man went down, but another appeared in the doorway. Time seemed to slow. Raphael watched in horror as Mia made a decision. She pulled Luca under the counter, the only solid structure in the diner, and covered his small body completely with her own. Her arms wrapped around his head, her back exposed to the chaos. A shield made of flesh and determination. "Mia!" Raphael's voice was raw. The shooter fired into the counter. Once, twice, 3 times. Raphael saw Mia's body jerk. Saw her gasp, but she didn't move from Luca. Didn't expose even an inch of the boy she was protecting. Something primal and ancient tore loose inside Raphael. He stood fully exposed and emptied his clip with deadly precision. The shooter dropped. The other one turned to flee, and Tommy took him down. Sudden silence, broken only by car alarms and distant sirens. "Mia!" Luca's voice was small, muffled. "Mia, why are you so heavy?" Raphael's legs moved before his brain caught up. He vaulted over the counter and found them. Luca unharmed, curled in a ball, and Mia collapsed on top of him. Blood bloomed across the back of her yellow uniform shirt, spreading like a terrible flower. "No, no, no." Raphael pulled her gently off Luca, cradling her against his chest. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused. "Luca!" Her voice was barely audible. "He's safe. You saved him. Mia, stay with me." "Tired," she whispered. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. Luca crawled out from under the counter, saw the blood, and started screaming. "Mia, Papa, help her. Papa." Tommy was already on the phone calling for their private doctor. Hospitals ask too many questions. Raphael pressed his hand against the wound in Mia's shoulder, trying to stop the bleeding. His hands that had killed countless people, shook as they tried to save the one person who'd given him hope. "You don't get to die," Raphael told her fiercely. "You hear me? You don't get to make my son smile and then leave him. Stay awake, Mia. That's an order." She smiled weakly. "Don't take orders from mafia bosses." "Papa, is she dying?" Luca's face was streaked with tears and someone else's blood. "Like Mama?" "No." Raphael gathered them both close. Luca and Mia, his whole world in his arms. "No, she's not dying. I won't let her." Sirens grew louder. Tommy appeared above them. "Doc's 2 minutes out. Cops are 4. We need to move her." Raphael lifted Mia as gently as he could. She cried out softly, and the sound nearly broke him. Luca clutched his father's jacket, sobbing. As they rushed toward the back exit where their cars waited, Raphael looked at Mia's pale face and made a promise. Serrano wanted war. He'd get war. But first, Raphael had to make sure the woman who'd saved his son, who'd thrown herself between a child and bullets without hesitation, survived. Because somewhere between coffee spills and chalk drawings, between accusations and apologies, Mia Alvarez had done the impossible. She'd made Rafael Moretti believe in love again, and he'd burn the entire city down before he let anyone take her away. Outside in a car 3 blocks away, an old man with dead eyes watched the chaos through binoculars and smiled. "Phase 1 complete," Don Serrano said into his phone. "Now we wait for him to come to us." The villa was 2 hours north of the city, hidden behind iron gates and armed guards. Raphael had bought it years ago as a safe house but never used it. Now it became a sanctuary. Mia spent 3 days unconscious, the bullet having nicked an artery before lodging in her shoulder blade. Raphael's private surgeon worked through the night to save her. And when she finally woke, Raphael was sitting beside her bed, unshaven and hollow-eyed. "Luca," was the first word out of her mouth. "Safe, asking about you every 10 minutes. Raphael's voice was hoarse from disuse. "You took a bullet for my son." "Of course I did." She winced as she tried to sit up. "He's just a baby. You almost died." "But I didn't." Mia reached for his hand. "Raphael, your face. When was the last time you slept?" "When I know Serrano is dead, I'll sleep." Her grip tightened weakly. Don't become the thing that scares me. I already am that thing." "No." Her eyes were clear despite the pain. "You're a father who loves his son. Everything else is just noise." Before Raphael could respond, the door burst open, and Luca rushed in, stopping short when he saw Mia awake. "You're okay?" He approached the bed carefully as if she might break. "I drew you pictures. Papa said you needed to rest, but I made 73 pictures, so when you wake up, you won't be bored." Mia laughed, then gasped as pain shot through her shoulder. 73? That's a lot of pictures. Papa said you're a hero, like in the movies. Luca climbed carefully onto the bed, avoiding her injured side. "You do the same for me," Mia said, stroking his hair. "I would. I love you, Mia." The words hung in the air like a prayer. Mia's eyes filled with tears. "I love you too, sweetheart." Raphael watched them together and felt something shift in his chest. The last piece of the wall he'd built around his heart crumbling to dust. The weeks passed slowly. Mia grew stronger, though she tired easily. Luca appointed himself her personal nurse, bringing her water, reading to her, showing her his schoolwork. Raphael watched his son blossom into a caretaker, tender and attentive. "He's a good kid?" Mia said one evening as they sat on the villa's terrace watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Luca was inside making them special tea with the housekeeper. "He learned it from you." Raphael's hand found hers. "Mia, I need to tell you something. You're going after Serrano." "How did you?" "I see it in your eyes. The way you disappear into phone calls. The meetings with Tommy." She turned to face him. "I'm not stupid, Raphael. I know you're planning something. He tried to kill you to kill Luca. I can't let that stand. And if you die trying, I won't make it either. Everyone thinks they're invincible until they're not." Mia's voice cracked. "I lost my brother to this world. I can't lose you too." "You won't." Raphael lifted her hand to his lips. "Because I have something to come back to now. Before, I didn't care if I lived or died. The empire, the power. It was just something to fill the emptiness. But now I have a reason to survive." Luca appeared with a tray, carefully balancing 3 cups of tea that looked more like colored water than anything drinkable. "Special tea. I made it myself. Well, Maria helped, but I did the important parts." They drank the terrible tea and pretended it was delicious. Luca chattered about a bird he'd seen, a bug he'd found, A story his tutor had read. Normal things, beautiful things. That night, after Luca fell asleep between them on the large couch, refusing to sleep anywhere else, Raphael carried him to bed. When he returned, Mia was standing at the window despite her doctor's orders to rest. "I meant what I said in your penthouse," she said without turning around. "I'm falling in love with you. Maybe I already have." Raphael crossed to her, wrapped his arms carefully around her waist, mindful of her injury. "I loved my wife. I thought that was it for me, that I'd used up my chance at happiness. But you," he pressed his lips to her temple, "you walked into my life with a coffee pot and gave me my son back. Gave me myself back." She turned in his arms. "Promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you'll come back." "I promise." "Liar." But she smiled, sad and knowing. "Just try really hard not to die. Okay? For you, I'll try very hard." He kissed her then, softly, carefully. Not the passionate kiss of lovers, but something gentler. The kiss of two broken people learning to be whole again. When they pulled apart, Mia whispered, "When this is over, when Serrano is gone, what happens to us?" Raphael looked toward Luca's room, then back at the woman in his arms. "We try to be normal. We take Luca to parks. We have terrible tea parties. We build something good from all this darkness. You really think that's possible? 3 months ago, I didn't think my son would ever smile again. You taught me that impossible things happen every day." Outside, the night grew darker. Tomorrow, Raphael would begin his endgame with Serrano. But tonight, he held Mia close and let himself imagine a future where he wasn't defined by violence. A future where love wasn't a weakness to exploit. A future that began with a waitress and a spilled cup of coffee. 6 months later, the city looked different. Or maybe Raphael was the one who'd changed. He stood at the railing of the Coney Island boardwalk, watching the sunrise paint the ocean in shades of orange and pink. Behind him, Luca's laughter echoed as he chased seagulls with the fearless joy of a child who'd forgotten what trauma felt like. "Careful, sweetheart," Mia called, one hand shading her eyes against the early morning light. The scar on her shoulder was hidden beneath a light blue sweater, but Raphael knew it was there, a permanent reminder of the day she'd proved love wasn't weakness. It was armor. "Let him run," Raphael said, sliding his arm around her waist. "He's safe here." "Safe is a relative term in your world." "My former world." Raphael's correction was gentle but firm. "I told you I'm out." Hadn't been easy. The transition from mob boss to legitimate businessman had required careful maneuvering, strategic alliances, and one final brutal confrontation with Serrano that Raphael still saw in his nightmares. But it was over. The old man was dead, his organization scattered, and Raphael had kept his promise. He'd come back alive. Barely, but alive. "You still have the nightmares," Mia said, reading his thoughts the way she always did. "Less than before." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "You help with that." "Papa." "Mia, come see." Luca was crouched near the water's edge, examining something in the sand. They walked over hand in hand, and Raphael marveled at how natural it felt. How normal. 6 months ago, he'd been incapable of imagining this. A Sunday morning at the beach, no bodyguards, no weapons, just a son and the woman who'd saved them both. "It's a hermit crab." Luca held up the small creature carefully. "Can we keep him?" "He has to live in the ocean, buddy," Raphael explained, kneeling beside his son. "But we can visit him whenever we want, like how we visit Mama's grave, and we tell her stories." Raphael's throat tightened. They'd started that ritual 2 months ago, weekly visits to the cemetery where Raphael would tell his late wife about Luca's progress, about Mia, about the life they were building. Some might find it strange, but it felt right, like closing one chapter and opening another with grace instead of guilt. "Yeah, like that." Luca carefully returned the crab to the water and wiped his sandy hands on his jeans. "Mia, are you going to marry Papa?" Mia choked on air. Raphael straightened, his heart suddenly hammering. "Luca, that's..." Mia started. "Because if you do, you'll be my mom. Not my real mom because I had one, and she's in heaven. But my now mom." Luca looked between them with complete sincerity. And I think that would be good. Papa smiles more when you're around. Raphael met Mia's eyes over his son's head. They hadn't talked about marriage. They hadn't even officially moved in together, though Mia spent most nights at the penthouse now. They've been taking it slow, healing, learning each other outside of crisis and chaos. But looking at her now, with the sunrise behind her and love in her eyes, Raphael realized slow was overrated. Luca, go feed the seagulls for a minute. Okay. Raphael handed him the bag of bread they'd brought. Stay where we can see you. Okay. The boy ran off immediately, surrounded by aggressive birds. Raphael, you don't have to, Mia began. I don't have a ring, Raphael interrupted. I don't have a plan or a speech, but I have this moment, and I have you. And I've learned that perfect timing doesn't exist. There's only now. Will you marry me? The words came out rough, uncertain. Not because my son asked. Not because you saved his life, though I'll never forget that. Marry me because you make me want to be better. Because you returned $5,000 on principle. Because you drink terrible coffee and hum off-key, and you look at me like I'm not a monster. Tears streamed down Mia's face. You're not a monster. I was. But you're teaching me how to be human again. Raphael took her hands. So, Mia Alvarez, make my son's wish come true. Make mine come true. Yes. She laughed through her tears. Yes, you ridiculous man. Yes. He kissed her as the sun climbed higher, as seagulls cried overhead, as Luca cheered from 20 feet away like he'd known all along how this would end. Later, as they walked back to the car, Luca held both their hands, swinging between them. I knew it, he announced proudly. I told my therapist you were going to be a family. Oh, did you? Mia asked, amused. Yep, she said. I was very perceptive. That means smart, she clarified. Raphael noticed something out of the corner of his eye. A man in a dark coat was watching them from near the parking area. Instantly, every fiber of his being screamed, danger. His hand instinctively went for the gun that wasn't there anymore. Then, the man pulled out his phone, snapped a picture of the sunrise, and strolled away. Just a tourist, a regular guy doing regular touristy things. Raphael let out a long breath, feeling Mia squeeze his hand reassuringly. She'd picked up on his tension, that brief moment of panic, but she didn't say a word, just held his hand tighter. You okay? She whispered, her voice full of concern. Yeah, he replied, and surprisingly, he actually meant it. The hypervigilance would probably never completely disappear, not after all those years and all those enemies. But it was fading slowly but surely. Day by day, moment by moment, Mia and Luca were showing him that not every shadow held a threat. Sometimes shadows were just the absence of light. And he'd finally found his light. They got into the car, Raphael's modest sedan now, not the bulletproof SUV from his old life, and started driving back toward the city. Luca was chattering nonstop about hermit crabs and weddings and whether they could get a dog. Mia was making a grocery list, arguing good-naturedly with Raphael about whether they needed organic vegetables or if the regular ones were just as good, domestic, normal, beautiful. As they crossed the bridge, the Manhattan skyline rose up before them like a promise of a new beginning. Raphael glanced in the rearview mirror. For the past 2 years, he'd been constantly looking back, haunted by everything he'd lost. Now, he was looking forward to Sunday breakfasts and ridiculous tea parties, to Luca's school plays and Mia's infectious laughter, to a life built not on fear and power, but on the quiet strength of choosing love, even when the whole world told you it would destroy you. The Mafia boss who had sworn off all women had finally learned the truth. Love hadn't made him weak at all. It had made him invincible. Papa! Luca's voice cut through his thoughts. You're smiling. Raphael caught Mia's eye and grinned. Yeah, buddy, he said. I guess I am. And for the first time in 3 years, Raphael Moretti drove toward home without checking to see if there were any cars following him. Because he wasn't running anymore. He'd finally arrived. She murmured, I was very perceptive, you know? Then, as if clarifying, that means I'm smart. Raphael's gaze darted. catching a flicker of movement in his peripheral vision. A man cloaked in a dark coat stood watchfully near the parking lot's edge. Instantly, every nerve ending screamed a silent warning, "Danger!" His hand moved, almost of its own accord, reaching for the reassuring weight of a gun that was no longer there. Instead, the man raised his phone, clicked a picture of the nascent sunrise painting the sky, and casually strolled away. Nothing more than a tourist, a perfectly ordinary person doing perfectly ordinary things on vacation. Raphael released a slow, steady exhale, the tension easing slightly as he felt Nia's reassuring hand gently squeeze his. She had picked up on his sudden shift, the brief, sharp spike of panic that had shot through him, but she refrained from saying a word, instead offering the silent comfort of a tighter grip. "You okay?" she whispered, her voice soft with concern. "Yeah," he replied, and to his own surprise, he meant it with a sincerity that resonated deep within him. The hypervigilance, the ingrained sense of always being on guard, would likely never completely vanish, not after all the years lived in the shadows all the enemies made. But it was receding, slowly, steadily, like the tide pulling back from the shore. Day by day, moment by moment, Mia and Luca were patiently teaching him the profound truth that not every shadow harbored a threat, that sometimes shadows were simply the places where light hadn't yet reached. And he had discovered his light, his guiding star in their love. They settled into the car, Raphael now driving a modest sedan, a far cry from the bulletproof SUV that had once defined his existence, and turned the car towards the city. Luca, brimming with childlike enthusiasm, launched into a non-stop stream of chatter about hermit crabs, the exciting prospect of weddings, and the all-important question of whether they could finally get a dog. Mia, ever the practical one, busied herself making a grocery list, engaging in a playful debate with Raphael over the merits of organic vegetables versus their regular counterparts, domestic, normal, utterly beautiful in their simplicity. As they crossed the bridge, the majestic Manhattan skyline rose before them, a breathtaking vista that seemed to promise a fresh start, a new chapter. Raphael instinctively glanced in the rearview mirror. For the better part of the past 2 years, he had been trapped, constantly looking back, endlessly haunted by the specter of everything he had irrevocably lost. Now, however, his gaze was firmly fixed forward, eagerly anticipating the simple joys of Sunday breakfasts filled with laughter, ridiculously charming tea parties, Luca's endearingly awkward school plays, and Mia's unrestrained, infectious laughter. A life painstakingly constructed not on the shaky foundations of fear and the corrupting influence of power, but on the quiet, unwavering courage of choosing love, even when the whole world seemed to be screaming that it would ultimately lead to his destruction. The once formidable Mafia boss who had vehemently rejected all women, convinced of their inherent weakness, had at long last stumbled upon the most fundamental truth of all. Love had not made him weak or vulnerable. Instead, it had forged him into something far greater, something invincible. "Papa!" Luca's sweet, innocent voice effortlessly cut through the tangled threads of his thoughts, pulling him back to the present moment. "You're smiling." Raphael caught Mia's loving gaze in the reflection of the rearview mirror and couldn't help but grin. "Yeah, buddy," he responded, his voice warm with genuine affection. "I guess I am." And for the first time in 3 long, arduous years, Raphael Moretti drove towards home without a single reflexive check to see if there were any other cars following him, because he wasn't running from anything anymore. He had, at long last, finally arrived at his destination.